Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1286. New Applications of Old Methods. A Real Opportunity. Pasha, Biles, and Phil were delighted to hear this. It was as if they had finally seen the light after searching for a long time in the dark night. What kind of opportunity? Roy blurted out from his dazed state. Klein wasn't in a rush. He smiled and said, "Did you guys not notice? There is no clear indication on the notice of who the enforcer is. As a keyboard warrior in the past, Klein had always claimed to be a jack of all trades. Furthermore, he had interacted with many lawyers in his life and had an Earl of the Fallen Marionette before. He had the basic foundation needed when it came to the law and rules. That's right, the announcement only mentioned a new consul, and it's not clear who the enforcer is. We encountered an invisible justiciar previously." Pasha and the others revealed a thoughtful expression. Upon seeing this, Klein reached out his hand and stroked the surface of the magic mirror as though he was combing an animal. Under normal circumstances, everyone has tacitly acknowledged that the police and the authorities responsible for dealing with supernatural cases enforce the law. This is confirmed through a series of legal documents, or the corresponding public knowledge. But this time, the rules haven't reached such an airtight level. If we say that the rules are built on a blank slate composed of the original laws, directives, and rules, then we should have seen the police, the Nighthawks, or the mandated punishers when we committed crimes, but that's not the case. In other words, the corresponding enforcer is indeed vague. Pasha, who was the most knowledgeable among the four Beyonders, thought for a moment before saying, "Perhaps the law enforcer is an abstract concept. Or perhaps it is tacitly equivalent to the new consul. The latter isn't clear either. It doesn't make it clear who the new consul is. This way, it can be anyone. The former isn't obliged to make it known." Klein simply replied. Phil frowned and said, "But we can enforce the law like the citizens. The corresponding authority is determined by eliminating groups via labels." Klein explained with a smile. "Foreigners are targets of ostracization and pursuit, so they obviously lack the required law enforcement rights. As for the citizens, they only have it when dealing with foreigners. This is confirmed through the notice." Without waiting for Roy and Biles to speak, Klein continued, "So, I just used the contradiction hidden in this matter to get Roy to test it. The result is exactly as I predicted. First of all, the magic mirror isn't a foreign living being, either is it a local. It's just an item with a certain level of intelligence. It cannot be placed into any particular group. This way, in a situation where the law enforcer isn't clear, those who aren't part of the elimination process have the right to enforce the law. Secondly, it had punished a foreigner. Those notices imply that all who deal with foreigners are law enforcers. Finally, the magic mirror itself has the rules of punishment. Before this rule is announced to be illegal, it has the right to punish others. Based on the 3 points above, I believe that 0-02 should be in a lot of conflict right now. Next, it will definitely issue a new law to clearly determine the main body of law enforcement, to mend the loopholes in this area. Once the main body of the law enforcement is revealed, it will contain a lot of information. It will help us lock onto the target. If 0-02 uses a method of adding prohibitions, it will definitely restrict itself, as it shares the same attributes as the mirror. This is definitely not its first choice." At that moment, Roy, Pasha, and the others, who were listening to Klein's recount, suddenly had the feeling that he was a knowledgeable and highly intelligent person. Could it be that Mr. Magician is a wise man who likes to travel among the commoners and legends? The four Beyonders each made similar but different guesses. At this moment, the magic mirror in Klein's hand emitted a misty aqueous light. Amidst the aqueous light, the silver mirror's surface showed the notice board. 2 more lines appeared on the bottom of the original piece of paper. "All law enforcement must be carried out by the Trunsois Brass Book or the group it authorizes. Any private rules can't surpass the official decree." Trunsois Brass Book. This is the full name of 0-02? The opportunity is here. Klein's expression turned serious as he entered cogitation. He had forced 0-02 to clarify the main law enforcement to obtain more information so as to further understand the situation of the terrifying sealed artifact. And based on Klein's deduction, 0-02 was more or less related to a particular Sapphira, just like how he was back when he had yet to become the owner of Sapphira Castle. Therefore, furthering his understanding of it would inevitably result in reverse corruption, thereby establishing a certain connection. To a certain extent, the Sapphira was equivalent to a great old one, outer deity, or the cosmos. Back then, Klein had used such mysticism knowledge to lock onto the location of dark demonic wolf Kotar. Now, he was using it in the opposite direction. From his point of view, 0-02 was definitely more corrupted by a Sapphira than him. After all, sealed artifacts were in a state of having lost control. This was why they needed to be sealed. Under such circumstances, further understanding of 0-02 would result in corruption. The reality proved Klein's hypothesis. And it was also because of this danger that he didn't show the new content presented by Erodes to the four Beyonders. In cogitation, Klein quickly sensed that he had an invisible connection with a certain spot. The indescribable corruption was surging over. Ding! At the same time he flicked out a gold coin, he used Sapphira Castle's aura to cut off the connection and isolate the corruption. Immediately after, a clear image appeared in his mind. Klein grabbed the gold coin with his left hand. After the glove suddenly turned transparent, he instantly vanished from the room and appeared in a hall filled with bookshelves. On the side of the hall with floor-to-ceiling windows, there were many long rectangular tables. On one of them was a book bound by thin brass sheets. "I've found you!" A smile appeared on Klein's face. He made use of the brief connection to do a divination. Then, he relied on the attraction between Sphirot to make the teleportation become abnormally precise. The law of convergence between Sphirot would allow Klein to accidentally enter the library and discover the brass book. However, it might have happened 2 days later, 2 weeks later, or even 2 years later. It wouldn't happen in time to stop anything. Furthermore, this was under the prerequisite that 0-02 didn't do any corresponding interference or avoidance measures. Pa! The clothes on Klein's back suddenly cracked as blood-red strokes appeared. This was a punishment for trespassing into a public area. Whipping! Thankfully, this crime is very light. And I won't be punished for this crime for the next 1 or 2 minutes. The rules will give the trespasser time to withdraw. Klein immediately reached out and grabbed a few times in the void. He didn't really pull out the figure of the ascetic leader, Ariana. This was because, to a non-committal person, a historical projection was a form of fraud. He only used this method to send his location information to the servant of concealment. Due to the same reason, Klein dispersed the glove on his left hand. During this process, the brass book started flipping and displayed the rules. When one's rationality drops to 20% of its original value, there would be signs of losing control. Scholar of Yore has the ability to summon historical void projections. The success rate of summoning depends on the familiarity and friendliness of the target. The Trunsois brass book is the most precious item. No living being is permitted to touch it. Those in violation are to be sentenced to death. One is not allowed to change the condition of the Trunsois brass book in any way. Those in violation are to be sentenced to death. The rules made Klein's eyelids twitch. He felt his rationality constantly dropping. This caused the primordial one's mental brand in his body to become more active. The first part of the rules is presented in grayish-black, as though it's in a state that can't be changed. This requires 0-02 to awaken further? If it awakens to the extent of changing the rules in front, it'll be very terrifying. It might even reduce the success rate of my summonings, causing Beyonders to show signs of losing control if their rationality falls a little. With this we've fixed the problem of this variant of a seer being too strong? As expected of 0-02. It fully lives up to its serial number. The text behind is presented in silver. Does this mean that the rules can be altered or enhanced? I can't touch it. I can't change its state. That also means that I can't take it away, nor can I directly conceal this sealed artifact. Perhaps I can use the staff of the stars or the box of the great old ones to directly move this library into the cosmos and let 0-02 face those outer deities. But if the outer deities were to grasp this sealed artifact, the problem might be greater than it is now. Klein hesitated for a moment, and didn't risk summoning his Grade 0 sealed artifact. The next second, he heard a smacking sound. The figure of Ariana's simple linen robe and tree bark belt was quickly outlined at his side. She was lashed by an invisible whip, leaving behind an obvious bloody mark. The first problem has been resolved. Now, we need to consider the second problem. That is how to seal this fellow, Klein said as he made haste. It wouldn't be long before he would suffer a second punishment. Ariana shook her head. The corresponding information has been destroyed. We can only resolve it through trial and error. That's a little dangerous. We don't know, but someone definitely knows. Klein's heart stirred as he made his spirit body leave his body and enter the spirit world. Through the invisible barrier created by 0-02, he said to the Church of the God of Combat's chief shepherd, Larian, who was waiting for the curtain to disappear. Perhaps we can make a deal. You want the method to seal 0-02? Larian turned around and chuckled. Do you think I'll agree? Actually, I'm very puzzled. Why must you sacrifice yourself for the fallen god of combat? By joining the Church of Evernight, you can still be an angel, and you can also receive blessings. You can also live for a very long time. Klein didn't directly respond as he said. Larian's expression darkened as he said, a mythical creature without any pious faith wouldn't be able to understand me. As an evil god, isn't it normal for me to not be devout? Klein couldn't help but mutter inwardly. This was his humanity.